wielding a weapon that was a little bit heavier than it was, and we had something that was cutting up that wasn't quite up to standards in the terms of doing that, you know. So what happened was, as I cut it, I gave, you know, here's one thing I learned about the show. There are things that you are cutting, there are things that you are chopping, and a lot of times they just want to see the effect of cutting all the way through. So every swing we got to do, I have to give it my all, especially if they want to cut it in half. And at that time, I just went all the way. It was a heavy weapon. It wasn't sharp, and it tore my shoulder. So I had a rotator cuff injury. So that, you know, for season 4, I had my students come out, and they did the cutting for me. And just recently, I had a little accident in a festival that I did. And here's the important thing, why it's important to talk about it. We sometimes get so excited with the things that we have that we forget when we're working, especially with knives and weapons and sharp objects, how you have to respect that. And I was in a situation to where I just loved the crowd. I met everyone. I did a meet and greet for 6 hours, supposed to be 1 hour. But I appreciated when people came out. That when they told me, oh, we still have a cutting demo at the end of the day, I'm like, I'll be right back. Let me just do this. So because of that, I ran to the spot, tried to get it done right away. What happened was I disrespected the weapon. I did not follow my own safety rules when I'm testing. And sure enough, I cut my hand, you know. And it's a blessing because sometimes we need to be reminded, you know, if you keep on doing something all the time, you take it for granted, you get complacent. This was a nice reminder because I'm still here. I'm very lucky about that. But for everybody else, when it comes to any kind of weapons and everything, always respect it just like a firearm. You have to be responsible with it, and you have to respect it. Or it'll come back to bite you. Yes? Your favorite weapon is a sword. Can I make one? I'll have Jay, Ben, and Dave make one. Yeah. Because if I make one, it may not cut. So my history with weapons is, it was something that I feared. I feared knives. And when I was in the military, I had a chance to meet up with people who actually had an art that had featured weapons used. And I had to face my fear. But in facing my fear, it became my passion. So I did it all the time. Now, I don't make knives, but I design them based on the art that I do. When I got a chance to be on Fortune Fire, you see, I design knives and I have manufacturing companies make them for me. But when I saw the process of knife making, the way these Fortune Fire contestants do, and forgers and knife makers all together, it made the knife have a soul. And when you research knife making all throughout history, there are some where it's sacred. It's sometimes used for ceremonies to carry your stature everywhere, aside from protect yourself. But then in watching how they do it, every knife maker puts a piece of them in there. Just watching them, the blood, sweat, tears, and all these things, it makes it meaningful. And if you research history on knife making, to some it's a religion. To some there are spirits in there. So it's amazing how all throughout history, knife making and bladesmiths and blacksmiths of those days were the magicians. Because imagine turning something that's this small into a sword, you know, taking something that you take to war to protect you and everything else. It is magic if you think about it. If you can't hear me, I'll just say louder.
Okay.
All right. No, right here. All right.
Yes, perfect.
One of those things what they do on TV.
That's good. Yeah.
That's better.
That's good.
Something's stuck here. So, next question. Yes. Yes. Oh. What about the Super Champion episode? Feel. How did Dave Baker feel when he lost?
Oh no.
Am I going to be nice or going to be naughty? No, we were actually. It shows that anybody can be a champion anytime. The thing about blade making in a competition, that anything can happen. It's not how you normally make blades. Dave was very gracious about it because the challenger did a good job. Here's the thing. When we saw, because we don't watch when they do, they kept all of us away. When they put the blades in front of us, I automatically thought, that's Dave's blade right there. Because Dave understands swords. A lot of knife makers don't make swords. And when I picked it up, I go, good balance. And then the other one had a slight warp. I go, oh, Dave would know that. It wasn't. I picked up the challenger's blade thinking it was Dave's sword, so I was shocked when they revealed and I found out it was, so the guy deserved the win, and Dave was very gracious about it. But you can't even deny, when we all agreed on which was the better blade.
Wow.
Yes? Who else? You're not going to ask me questions, I'll make some up.
Wait there. Question over
Yes.
there. Little guy.
Has anybody ever gotten hurt? We have been blessed that during the show, well, I think Force and Fire is one of the shows where we have to invest in band-aids. Every show, the paramedic gets on the floor and always puts at least a band-aid on somebody that gets cut. Because, that's the nature of what happens when you're forging. Any serious injuries? No. We're blessed so far because one of the things we have on the show, and you can talk to some of the bladesmiths how strict we are, is safety is most important. The show is not important if people are getting hurt. We would never do that. It's always about safety first. That's why we have all the rules. You got to wear this. We're constantly yelling at them, sometimes. And we tell them, prepare to get yelled at. If you're carrying, what you normally do on your shop is not what you do on the show. Because one of the things in the show that, aside from forging, you got to remember, there's a cameraman, there's a camera crew always following you. So when they follow you, anytime you swing around, you could accidentally burn them or hit them or anything else. So we're very careful about that. But we've been blessed so far, nobody has been injured seriously on the show. Yeah, cuts and burns are normal, right?
Is there anything new on any new test you're going to be introducing in the new season?
So he's asking, is there anything new? Well, you just got to watch.
Oh, of
but
course.
I do promise this.
Of course.
There are a lot of things that we did. So this is our longest break ever. We ended filming in May. And we were supposed to be back in August, but they pushed it all the way to the beginning of 2023 to start filming again. Because we did a lot of sitting down on finding out format changes and recreations to make it an exciting show to keep going forward. I think what I love about the show is that even though it's a feel-good show, you can sit down and watch it over and over, just like I watch Chop over and over. I like when we have some nuances here and there, and we pay attention. When we put something in there, talk about it if you like it. If you don't like it, it's always a hit and miss of what works. But we're always looking to grow the show.
What is your favorite blade that you've tested so far?
Favorite episode. Favorite blade that I've tested so far.
Yes, sir.
It's hard because we're close to 300 episodes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to look back into all those shows. I'm sorry, but I have to be honest. That the sword that I really enjoyed wielding was one of my design. There was an episode called the Supersize episode where we took the my Cortada blade I designed, which is a big a Bowie blade, but then they made a sword out of it.
Yeah.
And the reason I specifically, it was something that was never, there was no sword like it, but I had my suspicions of, if this was a sword, it should be able to do that. So I didn't want to decapitate George through the neck, because you're hitting the spine. I wanted to just clean his head off nicely, just the whole bone right there. And both swords perform very well based on the curvature inside it. It had an inward curve, so that means anything that you're going to hit is going to capture that. And it had the width, because it was designed from a smaller blade, but this one had the width of a wider blade. So it did everything that I thought it would, and hence it is one of my favorite swords that I've wielded.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, do I forge? No, I forge only a couple of times, believe it or not. It's just a time element. I did forge with Jay Nielsen, with Will, and it was fun. But here's the thing when you're forging with a master bladesmith like Jay. I'm forging the knife, I go, oh, how do I fix that? Here's Jay. And like SpongeBob, 4 hours later, thank you, it's all done. Jay did all the work.
Yeah.
Well, what I did was, in my city, I found a place that taught blade making, and I took a course. And I did everything wrong on purpose. This is what happens when you quench in water. Oh, crack. This is what happens when you accidentally pick up hot steel, even if it's gray. I did everything by mistake on purpose, and the instructor was like, what are you doing? I go, I want to be a kid again. You see, when I was an adult, I tried to be perfectionist. I've got to be perfect all the time. I wasn't enjoying myself. I'm so stressed because I wanted to go the right way. But I took the course just to feel and see and do everything. And it was one of the best courses I ever had. Even at the end of the day, I did have a knife. It was not the prettiest, but I knew everything about it. I wasn't afraid to make a mistake. So I say a takeaway from that is, in whatever you try out, be a kid again. Do it for the purpose of enjoying the process. Then later on, as you get good with it, it'll happen. But don't be afraid to make the mistakes. Get it out of the way. Now, first rule of juggling, drop all the balls. Get it out of the way. Yes?
What is your favorite moment that didn't make it to the show?
Favorite
that's a
moment
good
that
one.
didn't make it to the show. It's hard to do because I don't watch the show. There's a lot of jokes that I crack on the show. It's just me. I keep it fun. So a lot of my jokes don't make it in there because, you know, well, I'm a dad joke kind of guy, right? So I think there was one where I always mess with Jay, and I threw something across the table to get his attention, and that never made it. But I just had such a crack because Jay was like, "Where in the world did that come from?" and everything, and he didn't know, and I just kept on doing it. You know, never made on the show. Sometimes they tell me, you know, when the first few seasons, it was interesting. They were saying, "Doug, you smile too much," and it's funny because they do edit. Because I watch myself and I'm frowning, I'm so serious all the time. They'll catch those moments, even though I'm like this. That's what they'll capture when I drop my smile. And they said, "We're a History Channel, we got to be serious." Well, when you're doing that in a show like that, it's just not who we are. But eventually, we just started to become ourselves, and that's what came through. So I enjoy that. Yes. My favorite KEEL test?
Oh, that's a good one.
When I have to get to play with George. I do love that. You know, we have carcasses. We have, you know, all these different animals. And just to make sure everybody knows what we do, none of the meat or fish, nothing is ever wasted. We do have the wolf, NewYorkWolf.org. It's a sanctuary for wildlife, and it all goes to them. So nothing's ever wasted. We do not buy any carcasses for our test. They go to the market where it's already been slaughtered. So that's one thing about that. But I do enjoy George because I like seeing and feeling and cutting something like him. You know, it's got that nice feel to it. And I like the blood splatter and all this because it's fake blood. But it's always fun because I know I'll see him again for the next round. And yes, sometimes I do keep the heads. And I have a lot of connections with it. And it's funny because I dumpster dive. there goes Doug again, dumpster diving. Like, you don't know what this costs in other places. You know, and I'm coming out of the garbage, taking all that, and they stopped throwing it away because they knew I would be going in there taking that. But I have not perfected the art of preserving his skin. You can dry it out, but eventually it's organic, you know, so eventually it just stinks, and I have to get rid of the heads. I either keep the skulls, but they ferment and they smell after a while, and I remember because I kept a lot of them in one bin, you know, and I was going to take after the show. There was like 16 heads in there, and they were supposed to store it for me. I wasn't in. They called, look, it was just, they go, we walked in there, we thought we walked into a crime scene because it was leaking, it stunk so badly, and they go, can we just get rid of it? And yeah, of course you can get rid of it. Yeah.
Contestants that get sent home, do they get to keep their weapons?
Question is, do the contestants who get sent home get to keep their weapons? Yes. The finalists, when you're a finalist and you don't win, you get to take your weapons home. In the first few seasons, we didn't do that, but they lost. They get to keep their weapons, so they do. The winners, we keep those, and we display the winning, or we rotate them. We have an armory now, so we display all the winning weapons on our walls.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh yeah, by the way, don't forget, we have a Forged in Fire museum right here so that you get to see some of the bladesmiths and their works, and they get to talk about it, about their episodes, and also, you know, explain more about the process of what they did and what's the show like for them.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm just going to touch base on that real quick. So stage left, or y'all's right, is our Forged in Fire museum. We have about 5 contestants here from Forged in Fire that were finalists, including myself. We went through all the testing, our blade survived. Sometimes it just comes down to a hair, and he can tell you. He told us when I was on my episode, season 6, episode 15, that it just came down to the finest of details. They both made it through everything. So we have 5 of the swords over here, or finalist weapons, and those guys are here. So check out their little plaque or photo that they have there, and then go and talk to them about it, because it's a good story. It's always fun.
Yep. one of the things I like about the show when we're judging is we're on an odd number, so we don't always agree. So it can get subjective, but because when there's three of us, we get to present that, you know. And when we used to have those deliberations, they cut that out. I really enjoyed that because we get to argue our points, you know. But because of time and trying to give more, so they said, "You want more deliberations? You want to feature the bladesmiths more?" And of course, feature the bladesmiths more.
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Forge and Fire is our favorite competition show because the competitors have such camaraderie and respect for each other. How much would you attribute that to the culture of the craft versus the producers wanting a family-friendly show?
Interesting. So the question was, Forge and Fire is her favorite show because I'm in it. And, just kidding, that wasn't the question. But the camaraderie, they love the camaraderie of the bladesmiths. Is that really the community of the culture, or is it the producers? I will say this. It's why I love the show. Most blade makers are from all walks of life, but they respect each other. As a matter of fact, you are in competition by yourself. You're really competing against yourself, but they help each other. It shows that because you have a shared passion. Out of all the contestants, there was just one time we had someone who wasn't quite nice. I mean, even his own competitors wanted to, kill him. No, there's no killing in the show. I get to do the killing. But it was, and even on his episode, it didn't come out that way. It is not a show where we embarrass anybody. How can I, disrespect a contestant who puts himself through all that work, the heat, all these other stuff, presenting like their own child? That's why I really look at forging as a cycle of life. You have the idea of it, and then you get this piece of ore that you put in the womb of a fire, and then you mold it with your hands. You beat on it like the heat of life, and you're beating it in respect, and then you mold it to a beautiful weapon, and then you present it to the world. So when somebody does that to me, it is to me an honor to wield their stuff, knowing that it could break, knowing that we're going to beat on it. So I'm always thankful to them and respectful. And I think a lot of the bladesmiths who are there also know that. They know that this is an opportunity for them to do what they love on TV. And one of the things we did come up with is there is a standard of conduct that you have to do. To say, when you join us and come to the show, you need to abide by our rules. You have to be respectful. You can't be cheating and all. You have to abide by the rules because it's that kind of a show. It's a family show, and we want to maintain that.
Thank you.
Why do I always wear black? Well, I have ADD. I have attention deficit, thing. I love to look at a lot of things. I get distracted easily. I'm also obsessive compulsive. So having something all in black all the time makes my choices so much easier. I don't have to think about anything. I'll just wear that. There you go. And it's just easy. It's easy for me. It's a color that I find neutral to everything that I do. That's why when I'm not wearing it, people, even I get, too much white, too much color here. I'm getting freaked out. It's so much easier for me. My wardrobe is all that. And the show loves it because it's cheap. You see all the neckties and vests that Dave, all the budget goes to that. And then of course his beard and my mustache. So, that's a lot of money. Me, put Doug in black. So much easier. Any more questions? Oh, are the judges on the floor? Most of the time. We do take breaks because when Grady stands over there, any of the hosts, Grady or Will stands over there, it's a lot on their legs too. Also, we don't get to wear respirators or when they're grinding all these materials, so it's hard enough to start breathing that in, all that. So we do take breaks and then we come back and then watch. But for those 3 hours, it's nonstop for the bladesmiths that are competing. For us, once in a while, we do get up, take a break, then come back in. But even when we take a break, we go to the back and there are monitors, so we're still watching what's happening. Despite that.
Right.
Sometimes it gets hard on our nose, and we gotta breathe that, and we can taste it too. When we're working on bone, when they're grinding on bone, it's like, who's Dave? No, who's in the dentist again? So, really interesting stuff. Do I test the blades? I'm not sure if I heard it, but do I test the blades? Here's one thing that people don't know about when we test. So, in anything that you do, when we're talking about firearms or blades and everything else, you have to familiarize yourself with what you're testing for safety purposes all the time, period. Just like when you get a firearm, you have to zone, you have to be able to make sure it's in the right alignment and everything, and same thing with blades. But when because it's a competition show, I only get to pick up the blade the first time I pick it up and I go to test it. I'm not allowed to touch it before then. So because of doing this for over 30 years, I have the ability to kind of adjust to it as I pick it up and before I test it. Now, I don't know how it's going to perform, but it has to be equal each and every time. I cannot bring my martial arts into it. Number one, the thing that I'm cutting is not fighting back, so I don't have to be martial arts about it. I cannot be flashy because I have to be able to do the same test for the next competitor equally, and as equal as possible so that it's fair. So no, I don't get to touch their stuff until it's testing time, and then I try to recreate as best as I can. That's why I'm able to find out where the balance point is, how it cut, how it felt in the hand, all these other things, because I have the point of reference to compare it. I still look flashy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay.
All right, folks. So that's all we have for time as far as Q&A. Y'all stick around. I'm going to have Doug, Spike, and I need Jordan to come up to the stage. They're going to judge our best in show. We have our 6 categories already picked, and then they're going to pick a best in show. We'll announce that in a minute, and then we're going to do a little something special. Me, Doug, and then my co-producer Mike, who helps me put on the show together. We're going to do a little something for the crowd. I know it's raining, and we really appreciate you guys coming out. I definitely want to give a shout out to all our sponsors real quick.